welcome to our next lineup in our flavor compound series. So what we're doing here is we are taking flavor compounds that are found in wines. These are terms that are thrown around when you're talking about wine and tasting wine, but they're really scientific, but I think we can simplify them a little bit. So we did pyrazines, which was the one that leads to the green bell pepper aromas in wines. Next up is esters. So we have 3 wines that we're gonna taste through as we talk about esters, what they are, how they contribute to a wine. So first up, what the heck are esters? Esters are a compound that are caused by a reaction between an alcohol and an acid during fermentation. As a unit, all esters contribute very fruit-forward and floral aromas to wines. So very pleasing, aromatic, youthful aromas. So these can smell like strawberry, banana, pear drop, apple, citrus blossom, honeysuckle. It varies depending on the type of ester. So esters are unique compared to the other compounds because they're created during fermentation only. They are not related to the specific grape, and they don't have any relation to climate or terroir or anything like that. They are all dependent upon the reaction between the alcohol and the acid during fermentation. Another interesting thing about esters is that they degrade over the course of a year. So you're going to find the most intense forms of these in youthful wines, current vintage wines, or wines that are meant to be consumed early, not in the bottles that you have aging in your cellar. So I pulled together 3 wines. I have a white, a rosé, and a red that we can taste that are gonna illustrate this compound a little bit better. So I'm gonna start with my red. I wouldn't normally do this in a tasting. I'd probably start with a white and then go rosé and then go with a red. But the most popular ester is called isomyl acetate, and it is the one that gives off aromas of banana, pear drop, candy, taffy, that sort of thing. I'm guessing if you have studied wine, you might know where you're gonna find this. You normally will find this in carbonic maceration, or wines that are made with carbonic maceration. And one of the most well-known grapes that is made with carbonic maceration is Beaujolais. So we have a Beaujolais Village, and this is Julien Saunier, and it is called Wild Soul. So this is his very youthful expression. It is a full carbonic wine, and it is certainly giving me aromas of candy and bananas, which a lot of people will find in this carbonic macerated wine. So what is carbonic maceration? With carbonic maceration, this is a winemaking technique. Instead of normal fermentation, where the grapes are crushed and then they ferment on their skins, the whole clusters of grapes are thrown into a vat. It's closed off, and it's pumped with CO2 to get rid of all the oxygen. Well, what happens when the oxygen is gone is inside of the grape, it starts this intracellular fermentation. So it's fermentation inside of the grape. Doesn't produce very much alcohol, but it does produce these flavors of banana, bubblegum, cinnamon, that sort of thing. Eventually, the grape skins crack open and normal fermentation does start, and it's kind of finished off with normal fermentation. But that intracellular fermentation, or the fermentation inside the grape, kind of gives a little bit lower acidity and some more like juicy, fruity, youthful flavors that you will find in a lot of Beaujolais wines. So go ahead and taste this and let me know what you think. Wines that are made like this are youthful reds that are, kind of pale and very fruit forward and very floral. Oftentimes taste good with a little bit of a chill on them. So as I'm tasting this, I'm noticing that this is a very pale, kind of purpley color, youthful looking. And then on the nose, I'm mostly getting fruit and flowers. So if fruit And flowers are the first thing that you're getting on a wine. The wine is probably fairly youthful. And then again, I'm getting like bananas, fresh cherries, strawberries, that sort of thing. So isomyl acetate, that ester could very well be showing up in this wine. Some other examples could include Pinot Grigio, some youthful Pinotage. Examples from South Africa can showcase this as well. But if you want to kind of experience that fruity nature, go grab yourself a Gamay. It doesn't have to be a Beaujolais, it just be a youthful Gamay. Or any wine that's made with carbonic maceration is going to showcase that as well. Take home note for reds is if your wine smells, tastes, and expresses itself as juicy, very fruity and floral, you can assume that there are probably a good amount of esters in that wine. I do want to hit on one more ester that is commonly found in wines, red wines especially, since we're on our red wine, that at low levels gives off wonderful aromas of strawberry, raspberry, really good, ripe, crushed fruit, red fruit. But in high concentrations, it can smell like vinegar or nail polish remover, and that is ethyl acetate. Ethyl acetate can be a fault if there is too much of it in the wine. Okay, next wine, we have a rosé. So rosés in general are known for needing to be really fruity and floral. They want them to taste fresh. This is what they want you to drink on a hot summer day. Of course, there are exceptions. There are some that can be aged. There are some that see oak, and they are very tasty. But in general, the goal for rosé is typically to make a very youthful, pleasingly fruity wine. So this is a great example to taste and talk about esters. I chose a Rioja. So this is a Grenache-based rosé, and this is Muga, which is a pretty classic producer. You could find yourself a rosé from the south of France, from Provence. These tend to be very fruity and floral and fresh as well, also made from Grenache. Or you could find a rosé of Pinot Noir, youthful expressions, very fruity, very floral, probably full of esters. But in these wines, you're gonna get a ton of strawberry. So again, isomyl acetate will give you, can give you strawberry, it can give you sweet cherry, it can give you pear, and give you, a lot of different fruits, even though it's known for the banana one. But again, this could have some ethyl acetate and various other esters in there as well, listed below. But yeah, really good, fruity rosé, lingers on the palate. Good acidity, tastes fresh. So hopefully you noticed some fruity notes in your rosé wines, and if you could pull any of those out, I'd love to hear what you found. Last one to illustrate esters is our white. I chose an Albariño for our white wines. Why? Because this is a wine that to me is a fruit basket on the nose. And what I mean when I say this is that I'm getting every camp or category of fruit. I get citrus, I get tropical, I get orchard, apple, pear, I get stone fruit, peach. I get it all on the nose. It gets a little more tart on the palate, but the aromas are so expressive. So some other white wines that you might want to try that might give you very fruity or floral aromas include Pinot Grigio. They usually make youthful expressions of this wine. Sauvignon Blanc, Riesling, anything that doesn't have a whole lot of oak on it or aging is going to be perfect for noticing these esters or these really fruity compounds that are found in wine. Some common ones for white wine specifically are green apple or like honey and apples, which is isobutyl acetate will give you those aromas. And then octoacetate will give you a lot of citrus peel, those kind of notes. So yeah, grab an Albariño, give it a smell, see what kind of aromas that you get. I have a Columna Albariño from Ria Spicious that is incredibly fruit forward on the nose. And then very, very refreshing on the palate. When I say refreshing, I mean it goes down easy, kind of high acid, lighter bodied, fruit, flowers, mineral driven, those primary characteristics that are easy drinking. So a few things that can affect esters since it's not affected by the grape. One is the type of yeast. So winemakers can choose to use various types of commercial yeast in winemaking that are depend on what the winemaker wants to give. So a winemaker can choose to use a neutral yeast, or they can choose to use an aromatic yeast, and there's various types of aromatic yeast. So they can think about what flavors they want in their final wines, and if they want a very aromatic wine, they can choose an aromatic yeast. With the intention of having a youthful wine that is meant to be consumed early. Another thing that can affect the amount or the type of ester is the fermentation temperature. So warm fermentations are said to produce more esters, but they die off a lot more quickly, or fade a lot more quickly, I should say, whereas cool fermentations are said to produce less, but they are retained longer. So it can be a bit of a wash depending on the wine. And then warm fermentations are said to produce more floral esters, where cool fermentations are said to produce more fruity esters. Also, just to make it more fun and confusing, since there are so many esters, or examples of esters, if they are grouped together, they can give off a completely different aroma than if a certain ester was on its own. So that just makes it even more fun. But overall, esters give off a lot of very pleasing fruity and floral notes that you can find in wine.